So Chelsey, you are the Wisconsinista.
Yeah, yep, that's me.
Did you call yourself that or did somebody come up with it?
No, it's a name that I came up with. I was looking to create something dedicated to Wisconsin travel and adventure. And the brand kind of came to me slowly over the course of college. It wasn't something I knew was forming in my mind, but
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden I was trying to think of Wisconsin names and it just popped in one day when I was brainstorming and I knew that was it. I just knew.
So did you start this business, your business, while you were in college?
I started right after I graduated. So it was June of 2018 that I sort of took things official.
I think you're one of the youngest guests we've ever had on the show, Chelsey. So we're really excited to have you here. So can you tell everybody a little bit about what it is that you do? Because I think our audience as small business owners are really interested in what you do from two perspectives. Number one, how to build a social media audience, which you have done effectively. And then secondly, how to work with people who have these social media audiences so we can help market our businesses. So can you just explain to everybody what it is that you do? Because I think for a lot of people, this is a very interesting and new area.
Yeah, absolutely. So I run an Instagram and Facebook account called the Wisconsinista. So that's kind of the full brand that I have. And the mission that I have through the accounts is my motto I always say is to inspire your next Wisconsin adventure. But really, it was created out of this gap in niche that I saw in tourism marketing, where growing up in Wisconsin my whole life, I saw coverage of the West Coast and the East Coast and all these typical tourist destinations that you're probably picturing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole central part of the US was often left out of that. And I knew it was inaccurate to say that there was nothing to see in those areas. And I know there's a really passionate community of Wisconsinites and Midwesterners here who love the culture and who love this hidden gem that so many people don't realize has the value that it has. So it was the mission to kind of connect that community, bring people together, support other small businesses and hikes, help people get out in their communities, support the local tourism economy, and just be proud of where they're from and love exploring locally.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me because I'm sitting here in pure Michigan, where obviously the state has come up with this marketing campaign, Pure Michigan, which was a little bit sullied by the Flint water crisis, to be honest, but I think has done a really, really good job promoting all of the lakes in Michigan and all of the outdoor things that you could do here. Wisconsin has a lot of similarities, right? In fact, we share Lake Michigan. You're just sitting on the other side of it. But Wisconsin doesn't seem to have the same statewide branding effort that we have here in Michigan. So it sounds like people like you who, might be called influencers, right? Might be called creators, have really sort of picked up kind of at a grassroots level and are doing a lot of the marketing on behalf of the state. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say that's accurate. I think there is work to be done to change the image. You talked about Michigan as a great example where it's a fellow Rust Belt city. And all of a sudden now with Pure Michigan, over time, you're thinking about the lakes, you're thinking about going up to the top of the state in the UP. And so just changing the dialogue is kind of what starts at full effect. So I consider myself a player in changing that dialogue, maybe, more at a grassroots community level because people are talking to me directly. And then the larger tourism organizations can, at a more business level, make their own changes to the dialogue too.
Okay, so what you have done is on Instagram and Facebook specifically, you have built up an audience of people who are maybe interested in travel or interested in the Midwest or interested in some of the things that Wisconsin has to offer. And the way you are monetizing that is that you have organizations like tourism bureaus or small businesses that pay you in some way in order to be able to reach your audience. Would you describe that as your basic business model?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think growing this audience and growing this mission has really given me a target. What I call my community is also a very targeted niche audience, and it's also very regional, which is great for a lot of businesses. So I will have sponsors who are big Wisconsin businesses looking to really get their name as a part of that community so that when you think of Wisconsin and like the inside jokes that locals have, that jumps to your mind as a part of it. I have
Mhm.
small businesses who are looking to make a name for themselves in the local community. And I also have businesses who maybe aren't Wisconsin based, but are really trying hard to cater to a Wisconsin audience. And so that would be relevant for them to work with me as well.
Awesome. So talk to me a little bit about how you built up this following, because as business owners, we're always interested in finding ways to build up our own audiences that we own, right? And that are part of our umbrella. How did you build up this following? How long did it take? How many people do you have today following you on those two accounts?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I have just over 11,000 people who follow along on Instagram and then about 700 on Facebook. So I guess
Mhm.
12K is where we're sitting collectively.
Yeah.
But I've been working on it for over 3 years and growing that audience. And I think consistency is a really huge piece of it. I have
Mhm.
worked at companies as an employee who, are bigger established companies and put social media to the wayside. And it's really relevant. It's really unfortunate to have so many situations like that happen, but
Mhm.
consistency is really the key over time. If you hear, the 7 touches of marketing, you need to see consistently that brand name or that mission, to actually move forward with something. And so for me, posting consistently throughout those 3 years has really helped with growth.
Mhm.
Focusing on how I help people has been really huge. There's different things you can kind of make sure to keep in mind when you're creating content. Some people create content to entertain. I focus a little bit more on educating. So, tips for hiking or local businesses that sell X product that you might be interested in, or tours or things happening over the holidays that you should know about. So, I really focus
Yeah.
on that. And then obviously, there's a professionalism and aesthetic that goes into it too.
What about content that you hope becomes viral? Do you ever post any of that, or do you focus more on consistent quality as opposed to things that you think could be hits?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a good balance of both.
Hmm.
My foundation is photo content, which is not the primary viral content that we see
Right.
these days, but I think it's the base of people who originally followed my account and who stick around. So it's really important that that photo content is still coming out in the quality that people turn to me for, that it's still helpful, and there's still a need for it. But when it
Hmm.
comes to growing that audience and making my presence more known in the Wisconsin community and becoming a resource for more people, that viral content is key. On Instagram, that's Reels videos. A lot of people obviously go to TikTok too. So diversifying
Hmm.
your platforms works great if you have that option. But I think it's really important to have a balance because you got to keep growing your brand, but you also want the people who could be potential customers for your clients that you work with and promote to stay engaged with what you're doing.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people listening today, we would, love to have 12,000 followers on our social media. But when we think about people who are influencers, we don't think of 12,000 necessarily as being a lot. But what's really valuable about your 12,000 followers is that it is so targeted and so niche. Can you talk a little bit about your clients and the kind of campaigns that they've worked on with you specifically to reach your very niche followers?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the bigger ones that I've done are with kind of Wisconsin staple businesses. So I don't know if in Michigan you would know them, but if you're in Wisconsin, you definitely would. Quick Trip is one of our state
Nope.
gas stations. They are Wisconsin based. They're a huge part of Wisconsin culture. And then I think we all know Culver's, the fast food chain.
Of course, yes.
So they're Wisconsin based too, got that Midwest comfort food going. And when I worked with both of them, it was more of a year-long ambassadorship role. And
Mhm.
with that, there were multiple posts involved in this campaign. And within the big campaign of having these ambassadors and promoting their brand as a staple in the Wisconsin community, there were these smaller posts throughout the year to kind of keep them in everybody's mind of, okay, I'm going on a hike and bringing along this drink I got at Quick Trip. I'm going to Culver's after a long day of hiking. It's super
Mm.
convenient and affordable, and you can find them all over. Or if I'm out of Wisconsin, I have a piece of Wisconsin with me.
Mhm.
And so on a larger scale, that's the type of campaign that I do. And then smaller businesses, I'll work with them on like specific products. If they're launching or trying to get their name out there, and the audience is obviously great for that.
So for your photo content, you're looking for ways to authentically incorporate the brand into your photography, is what you're saying, with these larger accounts where you're doing this year-long ambassadorships.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing for brands to keep in mind if they are working with influencers and their goal for the campaign is to have their brand or their product or their initiative in front of my audience with my content
Mhm.
is to give some creative liberty. Don't get me wrong, be very clear about the deliverables you want and the messaging
Yeah.
you have, but so important to let the creator you choose tell it in your own voice, which is hopefully why they will work with that person in the first place. They saw something
Mhm.
in their content style or the way that they communicate that is distinctive and something that they want their brand to be with. And so to give them that creative liberty, not to, they'll still run their post by you to make sure all is well
Mhm.
before they post, but to give them the opportunity to tell things in their own voice. They're the ones that have established trust with their audience. And so that's a big component as well as people trust me to create the style of content that I do. And then if your brand can be incorporated naturally into that, and it's something I recommend as a trusted local expert, then that's when it holds the most value.
Okay, so let's walk through the process of how to hire an influencer if you're a business owner in order to be able to reach their audience about your campaign or about whatever you're offering. So first of all, how do they find influencers like you? How do business owners find you?
Yeah, so I have a real targeted niche.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, most people find me through either Google searches. Instagram has more of a keyword search now, but it used to be just hashtags, so hashtag research. But larger, more general influencers, like if you're truly just looking for somebody who has a lifestyle focus or a general parenting blogger, food blogger, something more general than perhaps me, an
Mm-hmm.
influencer marketing platform can work really well. I've seen lots of people find success from it. There's a bunch of third-party platforms out there. So if you're looking for general person or maybe a couple of people to have in your campaign, that can be a great way to go. They usually have, contracts and other sort of legal
Mm.
things set up if that's something that feels very overwhelming when you're first starting out. But if you're looking for somebody smaller, you really have a target audience in mind, definitely do your research. If somebody's
Yeah.
popping up on Google, if somebody's podcast appearances and things like that are popping up on Google, that's going to be somebody is an industry leader and you're going to want to look into further. And then just sending an email to start that dialogue because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's, you know, capacity to take on different work is different, and you really just need to propose your idea first and bounce ideas back and forth to see if it'll really be a good fit.
Yeah, I'll throw out some more ideas. So you mentioned searching podcasts for people who have podcasts on that particular subject because they do tend to be influencers. Also, contacting your customers and asking who they follow, who they listen to, who they admire, who they're reading. This kind of thing could be a really great way to find out who's influencing them. And then another one, I don't know, do you know this company, Sparktoro, Chelsey?
I am not familiar.
Oh, so it's Spark, Toro, Toro, and it was founded by Rand Fishkin, who founded SEO Moz, which was a tool for SEO back in the day. I mean, it's still running, but it was huge for a while. And he started Spark Toro, and you can go in there and you can type in, the kinds of subjects you're interested in, or maybe a website. Like, for example, if you want to reach small business owner, you could type in inc.com and see for people who visit that website, what other websites they're visiting. So you can get an idea of who's influencing them. So those are some really good tools. So you mentioned some platforms where they're influencer platforms. Would you be willing to name those?
Yeah, I personally I don't use too many again just because I'm so niche, but I
Uh-huh.
have utilized Influence Central. I know a larger one is Aspire IQ. Those are the two that I really have experience with and that people kind of in my circle use, but I know
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot popping up. So, different ones specialize in different niches. There's ones that really are travel targeted or like a makeup beauty target.
Mm-hmm.
So, to do some research as well, I think lots of search engines can, put together
Yeah.
the pieces of who's really ranking, who's really has the reputation that you want, and the
Mm-hmm.
reviews that you're looking for before you actually dive in and join the platform.
So it sounds like with a platform like that, there are some pretty standard prices. It sounds like it's like Fiverr. You could go in and you could get a particular package with an influencer. Is that right?
To the best of my knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
the campaign will have a set deliverable. So every campaign is a little bit different. You can go in and ask for influencers for a campaign or propose a campaign, whether you're looking for just kind of a one time thing, especially around the holidays. People will have very specific holiday campaigns. You might also be looking for something a little more long-term. When I worked with Culver's, we did a long-term partnership throughout the year with multiple posts. And so that was kind of proposed at a certain rate on the campaign website as well. So I think you
Uh-huh.
have some flexibility to customize your rate. They probably have suggestions for you though and benchmarks.
Okay, great. So, but if somebody is contacting you directly, they're probably contacting you through email, right? Or maybe through Instagram, DMing you.
Yeah, so those are definitely two of the main ways people reach out to me. I would
Uh-huh.
say even if you start in an Instagram direct message to jump over to email, I usually just encourage people to email me first. I
Yep.
think there's a lot more that can be said in email, any attachments you might have, photos of your product or the campaign, like anything you want to jump right into and share, you can do it in that capacity. And truthfully, like when I'm on the app itself, that's usually when I'm focused on content creation, engagement with my audience. And then when I'm
Right.
checking emails is really when I'm in like business mode and working with my clients and putting all those pieces together. So I think email,
Hmm.
if it's linked in somebody's bio, is a great first step. Maybe you follow along with their account and engage with their content and send some initial messages. But email is where I do most of the business transactions and discussions.
Awesome. That's really, really great advice. So that business owners understand that a content creator, when they're on their platform, is really in content creation mode, and email is when they're really in business mode. That's really, really interesting. So once they contact you, I assume that you first confirm that your audience is really the audience they're trying to reach. And then you start to put together some kind of package or some kind of deal, some kind of custom way for them to reach your audience. Can you talk a little bit about the kinds of things that get negotiated in those packages?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people would be surprised with the amount of back and forth that we have.
Mm.
And oftentimes, when I work together with others, it's because they've reached out to me first. So they do have this campaign in mind already. But if
Mm-hmm.
I or anyone who is the influencer is reaching out first, you probably have even more discussion to share, why my services would be relevant. But once we kind of establish that there's a relevancy, there's a campaign need, how do we fill it? Are you the person to fill it? It goes back and forth. I'll share analytics with them, things they might not have already found by looking at my account. You can usually see how many likes a photo has, what kind of photos I have to give you a general idea. I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you more about my target audience. I think people can be really surprised how many of my followers are truly Wisconsin based and Midwest based. And when
Uh-huh.
they see that, it's often like a really good sign for them. But maybe it's the age demographic that people really want to know about, or gender skews, or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so once we establish that, we'll go back and forth on deliverables. So, if it's somewhere where I have to be on site, we want to make sure that while I'm there, since I'll only be there once, I am getting everything that needs to be captured. So it's so important to discuss deliverables ahead of time, compensation. And then when you bring up the contract, there's a lot of sort of fine print and fees that people often forget. So, usage rights. Like my primary service is sharing content to my account. But if you would also like the content to be used in your future promotions on your account,
Mm-hmm.
that's something you can purchase too. Yeah, and you can purchase exclusivity if you really want your brand to be the focus of my content for a week or a month, without any kind of competitor in there to kind of cloud people what they remember, what they remember and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. You can negotiate for that, and just making sure your contract, which you should have, outlines everything you could possibly need in the partnership.
And who writes the contract? Is it usually does the influencer have a standard contract that they use with small businesses, right? This is going to be different when you're working with really large organizations, but with small businesses, does the influencer have a contract with all the standard copyright usage terms and whatnot in it? Or are you expecting the business owner to come to you with some kind of contract?
I have created my own contracts before. I
Uh-huh.
think as an influencer, it is nice to have a contract come from the business, though,
Yeah.
most of the time, if they have one, just because I know exactly what they want. I'm the one providing the content services. And so it's important for me to be able to read in their own words, in their own, legality, what exactly they need, what their expectations are, because I know what I can deliver, but everybody has different rules and things that they have in mind. And so when it comes to me satisfying the client, it's really important that I'm able to see everything they write out. So I could provide my own contract. I'm happy to do that if they don't have one, but I really like to have as much of their input as possible to make sure there's no issues. And so if they provide a contract, I think that spares a lot of confusion. And especially if you're working with smaller micro influencers, I would say they're less likely to have a contract ready to go.
Mm-hmm. When you think about the marketing funnel, and the top of the funnel is really where you're just trying to generate awareness, and eventually you move them through having interest in you, and then making a decision to work with you, and then actually taking action on that. The top of the funnel is awareness, and then the bottom of the funnel is action, or where you might do direct response marketing, for example. Do you find that for influencer campaigns, marketers tend to really be focused on getting awareness? Or do you ever run campaigns that are focused on action, getting your followers to actually purchase something?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the niche that you're in. In the
Mm-hmm.
travel sphere, it's a little more interest and awareness based for those type of
Uh-huh.
partnerships. Just because if I go, like I went to Iowa twice this year, I probably put a lot of places on the map that most people, especially in Wisconsin, where it's a really practical weekend trip distance, had no
Yeah.
idea about. But they're
Yeah.
not necessarily going to go book the hotel tomorrow. So, the first time they see it, they say, oh, this is interesting. And then when I share my first post, once I get back from the trip, as opposed to stories, they will save it to reference, okay, Iowa. And then they'll see the next post where I stay at the Airbnb and they'll be like, okay, now we have the Airbnb. Maybe we should go book this thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so with tourism partnerships like that, it can be a little more generalized or event sort of partnerships. But if you're promoting a product, like a very affordable, something for your house, something beauty related where it's tangible, it's affordable, it's easy to link over to your
Or
website.
or let's do cheese curds, which is a classic Wisconsin product, and one I saw on your website.
Yeah, that's a great example where it's something really affordable. Obviously, I
Mm-hmm.
cannot link you to buy Culver's cheese curds, but I can give you the actionable steps to go. I can tell you it's National Cheese Curd Day, and there are some fun festivities happening at Culver's about it. And I will get people posting stories at night saying, oh, I got to go participate at Culver's, or I was suddenly craving cheese curds after seeing the post, or I forgot how
Mm-hmm.
much I love them. And so, yeah, that converts directly to sales that same day sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So what about pricing? I think one of the challenges for small business owners is they have no idea how to negotiate these contracts. They have no idea how much it would cost for these sorts of things. Where can we as business owners to get an idea of what we would expect to pay for this kind of service?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest with you, I think there are a lot of influencers who also
Mhm.
don't know where to go for this. It's
Yep.
very kind of hush hush across the industry. And I have changed not only my rates, but the way I structure them quite a few times. And
Mhm.
so I think it's just important to keep in mind sort of what it is that you're paying somebody for when setting the rates, because there isn't necessarily a source you can always go to find an answer, especially, every person is different, every industry is a little bit different. And so if
Mhm.
you can't find something like that, definitely keep in mind that you're paying someone to be a photographer and a videographer for you. They're going to be the creative director of whatever shoot that they're doing, the stylist. They're going to be the ones editing the picture, and they're going to be your target audience. And then
Mhm.
also important to keep in mind when you're deciding your rate is that 30% of whatever you're giving us goes right to taxes. And, so I've taken some partnerships sometimes in the beginning that are three figures, and I thought it was a good deal for me. And then when
Uh-huh.
you actually take that into account, I'm like, I really didn't come away with a lot. So
Every business owner has that experience in the beginning, every single one. Yeah.
yep. So that's definitely a learning curve. And then the other thing too is how much involvement goes into the content creation end. If
Mhm.
it's something where I can just go to Culver's and pick something up, take it home, shoot it in my backyard versus if I'm traveling across a state for a full weekend or, going to this event where I am on for 3 hours covering everything. If I usually bring my boyfriend as my photographer. So, to have that person with me and have that camera equipment
Mhm.
with me, that's a lot to take into consideration too. So
Yep.
think about your
Yep.
paid advertising. Think about, if you want the rights to those photos after, think about how you could get both of those for working with one person. And yeah, so just keeping all those things in mind.
Yeah, I'll add a marketer's point of view on top of this, which is look at how many people in your target market you could overlap with this influencer's audience, right? So how many people could you reach in your target market in this audience? If you're trying to reach people in Wisconsin who like to travel, there may be a lot of overlap between your target market and Chelsey's audience, for example. So you might be willing to pay more to Chelsey than to, let's say, a mass audience that's going to reach a whole bunch of people who are completely irrelevant to you, but would have some in your target market in it, right? So you're willing to pay more if it's highly targeted for you. You're also willing to pay more if the followers in that audience are further down in the marketing funnel. So if they're closer to purchase, you're willing to pay more than if you're just getting them at the interest level, because you have to get a lot of people at the interest level to make one sale, right? So you're willing to pay more if they're closer to the purchase action. Just a marketer's point of view on that.
Yeah.
So last question, Chelsey. As a business owner yourself, so you're really interesting to us because you're both an influencer and a business owner. As a business owner yourself, what is something that if you were to do it all over again, you would do differently?
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of things, but I think for me, when I first started the account, I also started a blog. And I dove into both pretty head on. And I'm like you, I like website design, and it was really fun for me. But I jumped right into the way a lot of people in the influencer marketing industry make money with their blogs, which is like affiliate sales and that kind of thing.
Right.
And before I had actually built it up and knowing nothing about SEO or marketing at the time, I really needed to learn website design and making not only a website that was helpful, but communicated what I could do for others, what my website had to offer, all of that. Going the affiliate route in the beginning was not the most lucrative path for me. So I ended up pushing the blog away for a while to dive into social media, become a master at that, learn Instagram, then learn Facebook. It's important to diversify your platforms, but you need to become a master at something, at least have a good level of expertise before you jump to something else. So you at least have a strong foundation. And so staying in social media and focusing on that was a better move for me. I'm trying to be someone that partners wanted to work with initially. Building that ethos and trust was, I think, more important than starting with, hey, I have all these sales, when I don't even know the questions people are going to ask me, like, about what products I'd recommend.
Right. Great example, right? Just the need to focus not only from a market perspective, but also from a product perspective, or what it is that you have to offer should be really specific and differentiated.
Well, that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this episode of Marketing Made Easy, please subscribe to Jottful's YouTube channel. That's JOTTFUL. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll meet you on the next one.